I guess I'll segue into callouts and general strategy. And like I said before, information is key and necessary for playing competitive Call of Duty. It's not like public match Call of Duty where you have UAVs or VSAT, what's it called in this game, a HARP in the sky. Um, you don't have constant UAV. You don't know where they're going to be at all times. Communicating with your teammates, playing for information is super important. So that's one of the big things that requires a lot of just game knowledge and experience playing 4v4 competitive Call of Duty as opposed to 6v6 public match Call of Duty. So just have an open mind. Use your voice. Share the information with your team. And don't just call out where you die from. Call out what you're going to do. Make proactive plays instead of reactive communications, right? Like, especially in search and destroy, like, you're holding an angle for your teammate, or even in hardpoint too, like an area on P2, make sure your teammate knows, like, you're watching bricks, you're watching cobble, whatever you want to call it, you're watching square. Make sure they know what you're doing, so then they can focus somewhere else. Because, like, very rarely, and I'd say almost never, do you want to be, like, double holding an angle with the teammate, right? Like, I'm not exactly sure if that's the way to put it, but, like, you pretty much want to have all the approaching angles covered with your team. So, like, share information, be proactive with your play calls. Don't just call out where you died from, even though that's important, especially if the player needs to be taken down. If they're on a streak or if they're holding a power position and your teammate's able to get the trade. But, you know, call plays like flipping for spawns, like, or if you're playing control and you're going to go be a nuisance up in their spawn, like, you know, they're going to be spawning back here at the loading dock, like let your team know that you're going to be doing something, because the more that your team knows about your behavior or your thought process, they can use it to adapt their game. So say I'm being a nuisance up here. They're probably not going to spawn up here anymore on control, but they'll spawn back here. So then you'll have a teammate in lights or something picking that up, and you're just being a nuisance up here, forcing them to spawn in a certain place. So use your voice and communicate a lot. Like, just make sure you're calling out what you're going to do. Make sure your team is on the same page playing together. Hold your angles for your teammates, and you know, make sure you're communicating when you're going to, like, flip spawns. Like, you don't want to do these things by yourself. So I know I just kind of rambled there. Please just ask questions in the chat if you want. But yeah, that's pretty much the general strategy, right? Is, like, be proactive. Use information to your advantage. Like, don't just be calling out where you died from. Just talk about what you're gonna do, and cover these angles with your team, especially in search and destroy. At the beginning of every round, you have like 10 seconds to talk about what you're about to do, and make sure your entire team's on the same page. Like, this happened to me today in the tournament. Like, a team of disciplined players can still make mistakes and make the wrong play. So just make sure you're on the same page and playing together. So yeah, covering every angle with your team is big in every game mode. You almost never want to be watching the same place, because then you're leaving an angle exposed for a flank or anything like that. So when it comes to any objective mode, like, you really want to coordinate the objective play with your team. Like, you know, if your teammates are spawning behind you in hardpoint, you do what's called a bump. Say if I'm here holding P2, someone spawns back at loading, and our team really needs to push to P3, and I'm the one holding the time on P2, I can go through and call for a bump from my teammate. I know they're behind me, and they have to run through here anyway, so they can pick up the hill time while I'm already closer, and I can start making that play for the next hill. So communicating with your team, like, don't have more than like one person on the hill at the same time, especially when it's towards the end of the hill time and you really need to push through for the next spawn. So use your teammates' spawn points to your advantage. If they're backing you up, you have the freedom to move forward as long as they're coming in to get the hill time that you're leaving behind. So that's a thing with hardpoint that you can do to coordinate objective play with your team. In game modes like control, like I said earlier, make sure, you know, playing the objective in control is going for kills sometimes. Like, on offense, it's really hard to win on a lot of maps. So you need someone playing super aggressively and forcing them to spawn in a certain area, or holding a cutoff, or watching a certain spawn point, just making it really difficult for the other team to get to one of the control points so that your other team can stack that control point and then win the round. So that's hardpoint and control. Two things that you can do to improve your game and communicate with your team. Search and destroy. So coordinating objective play with your team, like pretty much like if you have teammates alive and you have to plant or defuse the bomb, they have to be watching over you 100%. Like they have to know where the enemy may peek you from. And you know, you can't just be the only one like doing the objective. You need, if it's a 2v1 scenario, you can hop on the bomb, and as long as your teammate is watching over you, you can and then get that trade. You might win the round like 9 times out of 10 as long as you have enough time to pick up the defuse if your teammate gets killed off the bomb. So I'm going to pause right there before I talk more about search and destroy. Fluky in the chat with a question: where would you prefer the op to spawn? So on a game like Control, you really just want to make it hard for them to get to the control points to defend it. Like if you're on offense, you really need someone up here like being a thorn in their side the entire game, like as much as you can, like watching people come from here or from here. It's really hard to dictate these spawns, so it's really map dependent and game mode dependent. So yeah, it really depends, and it comes with practice. There really is no right or wrong answer, like where you want them to spawn. What I can boil it down to, though, is you want them to spawn in an area where it takes them to get it takes them a long time to get to the hill, or you want them to spawn in an area where they have to take a cutoff that that your team is holding. So there's ways to like force the spawns, and if you have someone that's playing super aggressive, like you can kind of make sure they don't spawn in certain areas. Like this hill, for example, this is P3 on Garrison. It's really common, even if you're in the hill, if your team's all behind you, if your team's sitting at caution, if someone's at dark watching Cat, your team's too far back. They can spawn out here. Like I've seen this happen so many times. They can spawn out here, and you really need your main AR or somebody with an AR to just be anchoring like this back generator, because then they can be holding like an area like this garage or middle, and then you have the person playing hill watch dark, and you have someone in tools watching caution. Maybe you have 2 there, and then 1 here and 1 in mid. Wait, is that 5 people? You have 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 up. But not too far up, because if they start spawning here, you're going to have a really bad time and a really hard time holding that hill if they have infinite spawns here. If your team is too far back in the middle of the map, forcing them to spawn here. The way, like from what I understand, the way spawns work in hardpoint is like, depending on which hill it is, it'll give the team that's not on the hill kind of an advantageous position to take control of the hill. So like, here's the perfect example where they would spawn behind you, and it would become a really easy hill to break if they start spawning here. So on Garrison, for example, just you know, make sure you have someone in the generator, making sure they don't spawn here. You don't want to be playing aggressively in the middle of the map, because like they're not gonna spawn on the left side of the map here on the west side. They're not gonna spawn on loading. Like, they're going to spawn closer to the hard point. It's going to give them the opportunity to attack that hill most of the time. It's not like this on every map. Like on Moscow, the spawns tend to favor the defensive team on the hard points. So Moscow is really difficult to play in that. But on a map like Checkmate and Garrison, you can have more control over where the enemy spawns. So sorry if I rambled there. I really hope I answered the question effectively. And I'm not a wizard when it comes to spawns, but I hope I covered a couple basic concepts there that help answer that. I appreciate you asking that, Fluky. Okay, so back to Search and Destroy. Search and Destroy is a game of information, right? Like, if you know what the other team is going to do, and you have the advantage, you have your teammates in the right spot, you're going to win the round. And playing for information is key. Like, say I'm running up here and I lob a stun over the top. Like, that tells me, if I get a hit marker, that tells me there's people coming. There's people coming hitting top green. They might be pushing the bomb site that's, like, over here, right? Is it over here? There's one right here. But if I don't get a hit marker, that maybe tells me there's people watching caution. Or there's people already in vents, right? Like, use tools like stun grenades or flash grenades to get information and share that information with your team. Especially on Search and Destroy. So that's where, like, being on the same page in S&D, like, you need to call the play before your round starts. Like, even if your team is full of disciplined players and you don't talk about what you're going to do, like, you're often going to be in disagreements, making the wrong plays, playing alone even. So you can get yourself in really bad scenarios if you're a team that should be winning most of your rounds. If you aren't on the same foot leading off in a round, if you start running in different directions, you're going to lose the round just on, like, you know, discipline. You know, you really beat yourself that round by not playing together, not playing for information, not playing the objective properly. And, like, even if you can't get a kill on someone, like, say you're on Moscow or something and you're pushing through mid and you're on offense, right? You can see if the enemies are pushing through mid, like the checkerboard P1 area. You can see them. Make sure you call it out to your team. If they're watching, like, top escalators, you can call them out and see, you know, a lot of people play Moscow defense aggressively. If you see something, call it out for your team so they can adjust properly. Then you'll have a teammate up at your top eskies pre-aiming it or something. So make sure you're not silent. Like, just share the information with your team. And play for information in S&D. So, one last part here about Search and Destroy is playing for picks. If you have a skilled sniper on your team and you get first blood every round, statistically you should be winning, like, every game of Search and Destroy. You can kill me. Right? So if you get a pick, it's 4v4. And you take out one of their players, even if you take out the enemy sniper, they're still down a man. And that means you can buddy up, or you can roll as a pack of 4. You should always be playing for trades if you have the man advantage in Search and Destroy. If you don't, you end up in a situation where you have one guy challing, you know, you run into a group of them, or a duo. You have one guy channeling, playing on their own, going rogue, might be throwing the round away. It throws your pick away, honestly. If you're the sniper and your teammate constantly goes out and plays without their team, like, that just wastes your pick. Like, the whole point of sniping is to make them down a man and getting information. But, like, say if I pick someone off and I have 3 of my teammates not buddying up and they're going out there throwing their lives away, like, it's going to be a lot harder to win the round as opposed to if we played together as a team or if we had people playing as duos running out and getting each other's trades. So that, to me, is probably the most important thing about Search and Destroy. If you have a skilled sniper on your team and you get the pick most rounds, you got to play together. You got to play with your sniper, put a lot of faith in them. And you know, make sure you buddy up and play smart. Don't just go challing and throwing your life away. So that's all I have to say about Search and Destroy. And that concludes the workshop. So I know I didn't do a whole lot of visuals here, but you know, if there's a couple things I want you to take away from this, if you're a casual player, below average player looking to up your game to the next level. Remember what I said about centering and knowing where your gunfights are going to be and pre-aiming those gunfights? That'll make you win those gunfights way more often. You do not want to get caught with your gun down. You do not want to get caught sprinting. The sprint out time in this game is unbearably slow. Like, you do not want to get caught with your gun down. Pre-aim more than you sprint, honestly. Like, with enough practice, you'll know where the gunfights are going to be. You know where the opponents are going to push from. You should be pre-aiming those spots. 100% of the time. Like, if you're up here, like, you know, we all joke about CoD timing and whatever, but like you're holding this angle, like, just commit to holding it. Like, and if you walk out, like, don't just sprint out, like hold it for a little longer. You know, like if your gun is down, you're gonna die like 9 times out of 10, unless you really like just get lucky or something. You know, it's really important to have your gun up and ready to shoot. Nerd, thanks for the positive words. I really appreciate that, and I hope I left a positive impression on some people. Let's just recap a couple other points here. So centering, pre-aiming, nail that into your brain. Always be centered. Do not run around looking at the ground. I swear, if I spectate anybody in search and you're doing this, I might yell at you. You know, like there's no excuse for it. Just look straight. It's not Counter-Strike. You're not going to get a one-hit headshot flick with the AK. You know, you have to be ready for your gunfight. You have to be on target and pre-aiming that gunfight to win it. Most of the time against people that shoot back and hit their gunshots, and they're ready for you. You have to be ready for your gunfights. Okay? And things like recoil control will come secondary. If you're an AR player, you may not have to worry about this as much. Like I demonstrated earlier, like the AK that I used pretty much had no recoil. But just get comfortable with the guns, get comfortable with the recoil patterns, like shoot into a wall a couple times, understand what that gun is doing, and then use your right stick to counteract that recoil a little bit. So, like I demonstrated with the AK-74U earlier, if you're a sub player and you're really struggling in long ranges, medium ranges, it's probably because your recoil is throwing you off. Submachine guns are supposed to have a ton of recoil, and in Black Ops Cold War, they have a lot of horizontal recoil, which is way harder to control than vertical. So, submachine gun players, work on your recoil control. It will take you really far, and you will win gunfights that you shouldn't be winning if you hit all your shots. And if if you're shooting the sky after 3 bullets, like you're literally never gonna win a gunfight. You have to pull down on your right stick a little bit. So, like, look at how erratic this recoil is. Like, it just goes straight up and to the right, and it even does circles. It's really hard to account for. But if you pull down on your stick just a little bit, you're shooting straight, and those bullets are going to hit your target more often than not if you're actually controlling your recoil. All right? So centering, pre-aiming, recoil control. And, mix that in with your map awareness, your spawn awareness, mini-map awareness. Practice your movement skill. I really hope you go back and rewatch this. Like, I'll try to post it on YouTube. If you missed it, share it with your friends. If you have any friends that want like a master class or something, I really hope you share it with them. But I'll end it with another string of questions. If you have anything, please feel free to ask. I want to help as much as I can. But if not, I can conclude it here, and then we'll continue my stream with maybe some Warzone or Prop Hunt or something. But we're gonna keep the stream going. But yeah, if you learn something, please let me know. Like, I really like making a positive impact on people. I think I was able to learn competitive Call of Duty really quickly. I literally just started playing like a couple months ago. So this is just kind of a summary of all the things that I learned from YouTube videos, from pro players, from people in the Discord, just from playing the game. So I really hope you learned something from this. And if you learned one thing, then I did my job here. I really hope this was helpful. So if you tuned in, I really appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the Rec League and Gamers Outreach and our 24-hour charity stream. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for putting on this workshop, especially after, I don't know how long you've been up playing CoD now, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I think I'm going on like 14 hours here. I mean, I played that whole tournament, got to winners or grand final set 2. It was physically, mentally draining. But I've been staying up late in preparation for this stream, so I kind of adjusted my sleep schedule accordingly. But yeah, appreciate that a lot. Thank you. I was happy to do this, and I am happy to do it again. As I learn more, I want to share what I learned. Add me on Discord, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/SnoopCod with 2 Ds. Tune into my streams and learn. I'm always, answering questions, fielding questions there. DM me on Discord if you want to practice. If you want me to watch your VODs, like, hell, I'll take 20 minutes out of my day and do that. Like, if you really think it'd be helpful. I love to, like, just help out, and it helps me get better, too. So, Thanks if you tuned in. I really appreciate it a lot.